Every year we come here and we want to do what's right. And what's right, the same thing I told you last year, is voting. They can't beat you when you vote. That's the only thing you got to fucking be over them. That you're voting. I have a stroke about 2 years ago, and I am getting better.
Let's get back to marijuana use. Government assumes two things when it comes to marijuana use. Number one is you need to go to jail, or number two, you belong in treatment. And you know what? That just isn't the case. Most people that smoke marijuana like other people have cocktails in the evenings. It's not a good choice. I don't suggest it. I think it's an incredible handicap. But do you belong in prison? Are you criminal for that choice?
Governor?
No.
Let me get Lynn now. You there, Mr. Knopfsinger, sir?
Yeah, I'm here.
Lynn, we regret to re-inform some folks out there that you lost your daughter in 1994 to cancer, and she was a medical marijuana user. Now, that makes you foursquare in favor of medical marijuana use, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Not only that, I've learned a lot since.
But you also admire General McCaffrey. You know the banner that he's carrying. So tell me your feelings here as you listen.
And by the way, I haven't told you what I thought about medical marijuana. We're talking about marijuana legalization. If it comes to the medical use of cannabinoids for the control of pain or other medical indications, all of us are foursquare for NIDA and the FDA making these drugs available if it's controlled clinical studies.
Mr. Knopfsinger, sir.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what he means by controlled clinical studies.
What stands to reason now is for you to understand that it is not the effects of this wonderful God-given herb that the government objects to. It is the fact that they're not able to protect the pharmaceutical industry from the laws of all the chemicals that are going to go down the drain the minute cannabis reclaims its rightful place in a society where it has been medicine since the beginning of time.
I do know that if there's enough evidence out there that marijuana helps when other medicines do not, such as Marinol.
Where in the Constitution does the federal government find the power to ban or regulate drugs? The Cato Institute has distributed 2 million pocket copies of the Constitution. I try to remember to carry mine, especially when I'm going to give a speech and mention it. And if you look in here, you would be hard-pressed to find anything that gives the federal government the power to prohibit marijuana. Now, in 1920, people understood this. When they wanted to ban alcohol, they passed a constitutional amendment. You can't say much good about that amendment. But at least the prohibitionists had enough respect for the Constitution to go through the formal amendment process.
There's enough evidence out there that it not only helps people with chemotherapy who have nausea and diarrhea and loss of appetite. It also helps people who have glaucoma. It helps people with multiple sclerosis.
If I may differ, sir, it doesn't help with glaucoma. The Institute of Medicine study.
May I tell you that you haven't talked to people who it has helped, and I have.
Well, but I spent $1 million on a study out of the Institute of Medicine.
Spending money, but government is not looking at the people that it does help, and the fact is it has kept people with glaucoma from going blind, and you can find people who will tell you that. And
they just don't happen to be in the National Institute of Drug Abuse or the FDA.
Oh, well, I don't care about that because government can twist things around any way it wants to make its point. And my point is that medical marijuana is usable to help people with pain, to help people with nausea, to help people with the wasting symptoms of AIDS, to help people with glaucoma. Right. And there are people out there who will testify that it helps them.
And, yes, and you know from personal experience, your daughter's pain nausea, diarrhea, all the accompanying symptoms to the serious illness that was to consume her life, relieved all those symptoms.
Yes, you know, we don't claim, no, I don't think anybody claims that marijuana is a cure, but it's a palliative. And what it did for her is it got rid of the nausea, it helped with the diarrhea,
right.
It restored her appetite, and it gave her some comfort during that period of her life when she was undergoing this.
And your feelings about that, General?
Well, you know, the bottom line is I've spent probably 3 years of my life in hospitals. I've had 17 surgeries. I am all for any reputable therapeutic intervention to control pain. We don't do it very well. The American medical establishment needs better training. We do have terrific drugs nowadays. But at the end of the day, if it's medical marijuana we're talking about, disassociating 32 cannabinoids and using them in controlled doses for medical reasons, have at it. But make the science do it, not a bunch of potheads in California.
Well, you know, that's a nice, easy insult, but a lot of those potheads in California, in fact, have been taking marijuana because they have one affliction or another, and it has helped them.
Well, you got to hear what I said now, Mr. Knox. I actually believe that if it's medical intervention we're talking about, then have the FDA and the NIH do disassociative studies, put out the cannabinoids in pill or a rapid onset delivery vehicle. We're all for it.
Well, General, are you aware of the fact that at one time the federal government was giving marijuana cigarettes to 17 people, and now it's down to 7, but some of those people had glaucoma, and it was helping them with glaucoma?
Actually, the Institute of... you picked one of the few indications, by the way, for which it's probably not helpful.
Seconds, yeah.
But we are fully convinced that NIDA should fund any legitimate investigation of either smoked marijuana in the short term or, more importantly, pure cannabinoid research in the long term. We're all for it, as long as it's science and medicine we're talking about.
The federal government's contemporary prohibition policy is an illegal and unconstitutional usurpation of a power never granted to it.
We've been talking about the issue of legalizing marijuana. In San Francisco, City Supervisor Mark Leno has put a proposal on the ballot in November to gauge interest in government-grown and distributed marijuana. We're going to grow pot on the city's going to grow the pot. Do I understand you?
First of all, I've been following your debate here, and for the general to say he wants to put facts on the table, to use inflammatory words like potheads in California really confuses me. This is a medical issue, a serious medical issue. I'm concerned about the thousands and thousands of San Franciscans, Californians, and Americans who depend upon a safe and reliable access to their medicines. There is no good reason in the world why the federal government should stand between ill and vulnerable citizens and the medicines they depend upon. So for all of your years in your position, you talk now about, yes, we should go ahead with these studies. It is pure politics, and that is the simple truth, that have prevented the kind of research that we should have done decades and decades
Mark,
ago.
let me get...
The war on non-corporate drugs is a war that has to end. And I know all of you here feel that way. And I'd say that our opinion is not the minority, I'd say it's the true majority.
And so what does every administration do? They have to do a new study. Because they don't have the balls to come out and say things should be checked. We got to study it again. They all do a study. It all comes back the same. It makes you eat cookie dough.
General McCaffrey, if he was here, he would say that industrial hemp is a stalking horse for marijuana. Well, I have news for you, General McCaffrey. At 1/3 of 1% THC, even you couldn't get high smoking industrial hemp.
The thing is, though, that we had built in a premise that wasn't correct. That being that the government was somehow looking at either common sense, truth and fact, or at least what the people want as a basis of doing their policies. And so, as it turned out, none of those things is true. The government works on what we call legal fiction, which means that the politicians make up stuff, they pass it into law, and the courts are then bound to act like it's true, whether it's true or not. The truth. I work as an expert witness in the courts. And one of the things that totally amazes me is that I have to keep, every time I get under, they make me take an oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. But yet, in a federal court, it doesn't matter what the truth is. What matters is the way that the law has been written to redefine reality.
We need to take a stand that many of us have refused to take in the past, and that is we must let elected officials know that you no longer win votes and you no longer win elections by locking up marijuana smokers.
And when one of the jurors got confused about it, and she called the lawyer, and the lawyer said, if you don't vote the way the judge wants, you could get in big trouble. And now this same judge is deciding whether the jury had misconduct. Here we have it. Bribed and intimidated witnesses. Confused and intimidated jury members. You know, this is the first time in American history that a jury has repudiated its verdict.
Pay more attention to the media that's going on now. John Stassel, did anybody get a listen, a watch? ABC News, John Stassel. He needs some support from you. He needs some letters, and ABC needs to know that you appreciate the truth being out there, that we need that kind of reporting, that we need much more of it, in fact, because he's getting the backlash now from people who call themselves religions. I don't think they have any spirituality, because I know of no religion that would demand that the citizens mistreat seriously ill patients. Have you ever heard of such a thing? Sounds like a devil-worshipping thing to me. Well, it's called corporate America. The patients are competing against the pharmaceutical companies because before cannabis was illegal, it alleviated far too many malices and suffering, much more than any other can, as safely as cannabis does. So yes, they will lose a lot of business. Not to mention there is a petroleum industry that the patients just can't fight, but it has substituted this plant with almost 50,000 chemical products, petroleum-based. I want all of us to wear these beautiful clothes in the spirit of Thanksgiving, in which we take that sacrament when we take a toke. This is one of God's greatest gifts to us.
And in order to make things safe in the galaxy for cannabis smokers, I suggest you grow lots and lots of cannabis. See, because they can't get it all, okay? They can take down one ship, they can take down another, but they can't get it all. So grow, grow, grow. And you know what? Grow organically. No need to use chemicals. Grow organically. Mother Earth loves you.
The farmers can grow the grains to make the biodiesel, they can grow the grains to make the ethanol, and they can make their biodiesel, and then with the waste product, using potassium hydroxide to have a good soil builder, the ingredients to make potash. So that's the loop. Got to close that loop.
Our challenge is to convert that public support into public policy, and I have a couple of specific suggestions for how I think we get there. First, we must contact our elected officials at all levels of government to let them know there is a large constituency of voters out there who oppose treating marijuana smokers like criminals.
So candidates need to know that we can mount a sizable number of people. Against them if they try to do what Bush and Gore did in the last election, which was a conspiracy of silence. Neither one of them wanted to mention it because both their hypocrisies were so glaring that they just left it off the field, because both of them had such an immense drug history in their own lives. They knew firsthand. I could forgive Bob Dole, who was like my father, you know, don't you be shooting pot, you know. I could forgive that era. I cannot forgive the Al Gores and George Bushes, who were right there when drugs were fun and not the greatest evil in America.
Who do you think got better weed in college? George Bush Jr. or Bill Clinton?
George Bush Jr.
And why?
That's a great question. Yeah, that's a really funny question.